0. How many were there 500 years ago, you think? Probably a lot of them, right? Well, what happened? You see, when people move into an area and civilize it, the big ferocious animals are driven off or killed off, right? If it came on the evening news tonight that there were 5 grizzly bears roaming around Escambia County, do you know what would happen by 6 o'clock in the morning? Every redneck in 3 counties would be out there with a rifle trying to shoot one. And whoever could shoot the biggest one would be the hero. They'd put his picture in the paper, you know, I shot the grizzly bear and saved the village. That's exactly what would happen. And that's what happened to the dragons. Man, if you could kill a dragon, you'd be a hero. And there are all sorts of stories of people killing these dragons. Gilgamesh is famous for slaying a dragon. Some Chinese guy named Yu surveyed the land of China. And according to the story, he built channels to drain the water off to the sea to make the land livable again. And many snakes and dragons were driven from the marshlands. Just, you know, you got to drive the dragons off before you can, you know, farm the lands. Like it's part of the procedure. The Babylonian god Marduk is shown pictured here on top of a fire-breathing dragon. You say, now, Brother Hovind, you don't believe in fire-breathing dragons, do you? Well, yeah, I do. The Bible talks about a fiery flying serpent in Isaiah 14. There's an entire chapter in Job 41 about the fire-breathing dragon called Leviathan. Look what it says here. Out of his mouth go burning lamps and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils go a smoke. I've seen deacons do that. As out of a seething pot or cauldron, his breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. You know, there really was a fire-breathing dragon. We've got a whole videotape about that, an hour and a half long, on Leviathan, the fire-breathing dragon, in our topical series of tapes. But if you get a Catholic Bible, you'll find the book of Daniel has 2 extra chapters. This is part of what's called the apocryphal books, okay? It's not scripture, but it's interesting reading. In Daniel chapter 14, it says, there was a great dragon in the place, and the Babylonians worshipped him. And the king said to Daniel, behold, thou canst not say now that this is not a living God. Adore him, therefore. And Daniel said, I adore the Lord my God, for he is the living God. But that is no living God. But give me leave, O king. That means give me permission. And I will kill this dragon without sword or club. And the king said, I give thee leave. Then Daniel took pitch and fat and hair and boiled them together and made lumps and put them into the dragon's mouth, and the dragon burst asunder. What a strange story. Let me give you the Hovind translation of what's going on here. Okay? The Bible tells us Daniel was a man who understood science. Daniel knew full well that pitch is made from tree sap, and fat is salty tasting, and just about all animals like salty tasting things. That's why I put out salt blocks for the cows or the deer, right? And hair won't digest very well. So Daniel put them all together, made lumps, tossed them in. The dragon liked the taste because of the fat. He swallowed them, but because of the stickiness and the hair, they wouldn't digest, and they plugged up his intestinal tract. And these were the days before Roto-Rooter, and so he burst asunder. You figure it out. I know Saddam Hussein, by the way, do you ever notice George Bush always called him Saddam Hussein? There's a reason for that, okay? Saddam is the Arabic word that means prince. Saddam, spelled the same way, pronounced differently, means horse's rear end. So George Bush called him Saddam Hussein. Anyway, Saddam thinks he is Nebuchadnezzar reincarnated. The guy has a serious ego problem, okay? He's got his picture in front of Nebuchadnezzar on their currency. Saddam has spent a fortune rebuilding ancient Babylon. Did you know Babylon was destroyed in 600 BC? Saddam has rebuilt it in the last 20 years. They're using the city today. When they found the original brick walls of the old city of Babylon from 2,600 years ago, they were very well preserved in the dry sand. They just excavated the walls and found carvings of dragons on them. How did they know about dragons in 600 BC? Well, there were probably some still alive. And apparently, Nebuchadnezzar had one in a cage. He had whatever else he wanted, you know. He was an absolute dictator. But the ancient city of Babylon shows dragons all over these brick walls. Very interesting. Alexander the Great reported in 300 BC that his soldiers were scared by dragons when they conquered part of India. This Roman mosaic shows 2 long-necked dragons fighting. Or kissing. You can't tell what's happening for sure. Boy, that would be necking, wouldn't it? Wow. Anyway, How did the Romans know about dragons in the 2nd century after Christ? St. George is famous for slaying a dragon in 275 A.D. Beowulf is famous for killing dragons. He was finally killed by a dragon when he was 88 years old. If you ever get the Beowulf story in Old English, good luck trying to read it. That's English, folks, from 1,500 years ago. Ma'am, you're from England. Can you read any of that? No? Okay. I know they still talk funny over in your country, but that's why they lost the war, by the way. But the Beowulf story, when they translate it to modern English, says, Beowulf killed Grendel the dragon by pulling off one of its arms, and the creature bled to death. What a strange story. Pulled off his arm. Well, most folks that study the T-Rex will tell you his front arms were pretty weak and puny. And I don't know if this was the dragon they're talking about or not, but probably if you could ever get a way to get a hold of it, you could probably jerk one of his arms off. Getting to it would be the tough part, you know. But they did find the Babylonian cylinder seal showing a man pulling the arm off a dragon. Interesting. There are dragon legends from countries all over the world, especially in the water. Of course, they'd be the hardest ones to exterminate, of course. Ancient pottery, one of the oldest pieces of pottery in the world, for example, like this one from the First Dynasty in Egypt, shows 2 long-necked dragons on this pottery. Well, this fellow says no human being's ever seen a dinosaur. Well, then why did they put them on their pottery? He doesn't know that nobody's ever seen one. He thinks nobody's ever seen one because he has never seen one. And because he was taught going through school that nobody's ever seen one, and he was crippled by his education, like a lot of kids are these days. Here's an ancient hippo tusk showing an animal with a long neck and a long tail. This is found in a tomb from the 12th century B.C. Just about every country that has ancient roots has stories of dragons. There's a Thai seafood restaurant showing a dragon head on the animal. There's a Russian medallion showing a man slaying a dragon. There's a Bulgarian postage stamp with somebody killing a dragon. An Irish writer in 900 A.D. reported that someone killed a dragon with iron nails on its tail. There are many websites that deal with dragons. Most of them are from the, occult philosophy. But it's interesting, all the legends of dragons that have been found throughout the world. The Norwegians, my ancestors, used to put dragon heads on their ships. Why would they do that? Why are there so many legends about the Kraken, the great dragon of the sea that the Norse Vikings talked about so much? Siegfried is famous for slaying the dragon Fafnir, famous Norwegian hero from 1,000 years ago. Marco Polo lived in China for 17 years. When he came back, he reported the emperor is raising dragons to pull chariots in his parades. Why would he say that? Well, I have a theory about that. I think he said that because the emperor was raising dragons to pull chariots in his parades. That's my theory. If you look at the old Chinese law books from 1611, that's when they appointed the post of royal dragon feeder. Why do you need a royal dragon feeder? To feed the dragon. Probably getting pretty rare by then, but I think there were few alive 400 years ago. A city in France was renamed to honor the man who slew the dragon. Nerluc, France. The Indians carved pictures of dinosaurs on the walls of the Grand Canyon. Dr. Delancey, he's dead now, but his widow still travels and speaks on creation up in Perkasie, Pennsylvania, took these photographs of the dinosaurs on the walls of the Grand Canyon. Interesting. They say nobody's ever seen one, huh? I don't think so. This article came out in 1924. I want you to look at this carefully. The fact that some prehistoric man made a pictograph of a dinosaur on the walls of this canyon upsets completely all of our theories regarding the antiquity of man. We upset their theory. Facts are stubborn and immutable things. If theories do not square with the facts, then the theories must change. The facts remain. About a year ago, a photograph of a dinosaur was shown to a scientist of national repute who was then specializing in dinosaurs. He said it is not a dinosaur, it is impossible because we know that dinosaurs were extinct 12 million years before man appeared on Earth. First, I'd like you to notice he said 12 million years, didn't he? Today's students are taught it is 65 million years before dinosaurs went extinct, right? You know, back in 1905, the textbooks say the Earth is 2 billion years old. In 1969, when they went to the moon, the textbooks told the kids the Earth is 3.5 billion years old. Today, they're taught the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. In 1770, they taught the kids the Earth was 70,000 years old. Wow, the Earth is getting older at the rate of about 40 years per minute. Aging rapidly, folks. If you go to Blanding, Utah, you'll find carvings of dinosaurs on the canyon there in Blanding, Utah, right now, still there. Here's an Australian cave painting where somebody painted a picture of a dinosaur and a native running away from it on a cave in Australia. I can't pronounce the name of this lake in Canada, but there's a picture, looks like a dinosaur to me, painted by the Indians on this cliff, on this island in Canada. He says no one's ever seen one. I don't think he knows that. He just thinks that. If you go to Ica, Peru, they've got the driest desert in the world down there. It's only rained once or twice in 400 years. Not a good place for a garden. When the Spanish came across that area in 1570s, they found white lines going across this desert.